Do you think the team is closer to building towards a win now mode or closer to a rebuild mode?
I'm not here to rebuild. I'm here to win. So, I don't know whatever that means, but yeah, I'm here to win now, and wherever I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be here to win. So that's all that matters to me.
I made a video last week talking about Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns and how I could see him being traded this offseason because it is the right move for both parties in terms of Garrett and the Browns organization. And after doing some more thinking and more research into Maxx Crosby and the Las Vegas Raiders, I think, yes, we could see yet another superstar defensive end traded this offseason in Mad Maxx Crosby. And honestly, it pretty much has to do with the exact same reasons why I think Myles Garrett will be eventually shipped out as well. It just does not make a ton of sense for the Las Vegas Raiders to keep Crosby on their team, who is going to be 28 years old next season, to win anywhere from 5 to 8 games and probably not be a playoff team. The Raiders are entering an entirely new regime this offseason, hiring former Buccaneers assistant GM John Spytek to be the new lead man in charge. And then for head coach, they hired legendary coach Pete Carroll, who has been around the block multiple times. But the big question mark still regarding the Raiders and going forward is what they're going to do with the quarterback position. Now, Mark Davis did bring in the greatest quarterback in NFL history in Tom Brady during the season, but that was to be a minority owner, not to play quarterback for the Raiders, so they still have a huge question mark at that position, and the Raiders don't really have a clear path to one as we sit here towards the end of January. They somehow only have the 6th pick in the NFL draft despite winning only 4 games. This was a very rough year if you were a bad team because there were just so many other bad teams. I feel like most seasons, if you win 4 games, you're picking top 3, but Antonio Pierce and the Raiders decided to win a couple of meaningless games down the stretch, and now they're on the outside looking into a very weak quarterback class that really only has 2 names that are worthy of a top 10 selection in Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And when you combine the fact that there is a handful of other quarterback needy teams picking ahead of the Raiders in just a couple of months, I don't know if Vegas is going to be able to select one of those 2 guys and be able to have their quarterback moving forward. I made a video a couple of months ago talking about Shedeur Sanders and his connections to the Raiders organization with Tom Brady and Mark Davis. So I do think Sanders would be the guy that the Raiders would like to select. The question is, will he fall to number 6? And if he doesn't, do the Raiders value him enough to trade up with a team that could be open to moving back in the draft? And so Vegas cannot get one of those quarterbacks in the NFL draft. Currently on the roster, they have Aiden O'Connell, Desmond Ridder, and Gardner Minshew. We saw it this season, and we will see it again next season. If one of those guys has to start majority of the season, they're not going to be a very good team. They're going to be picking top of the draft. It doesn't matter how good the rest of the talent on the team is. You cannot have one of those quarterbacks start for you for majority of the season and expect to be competitive. So if the Raiders cannot get one of those quarterbacks in April, will they want to go in free agency and get somebody like Kirk Cousins, maybe Russell Wilson, or pay a large sum of money to Sam Darnold? Those are a few more options, but I don't think Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins are particularly good at this stage of their careers. Sam Darnold would be fairly interesting, but was he more of a product of what was around him in Minnesota, or is he actually an average to an above average quarterback? That is to be seen, and I think the Raiders, they could roll the dice and see if he really is worth it. So bringing this full circle and back to Maxx Crosby, why would he want to stay a part of the Raiders if they don't have a real chance to be competitive due to the quarterback position? I mean, if you just look at it from his perspective, he's only got a few more prime years left, and he's been a part of one of the worst franchises in terms of just wins and success in the last several years, his entire career. He's only played in 1 playoff game that lost to the Cincinnati Bengals on the road. And I think for somebody as good as Crosby, he does not want to go his entire career not really having any playoff success or even a lot of games played in the playoffs whatsoever. He also posted something on Twitter just a couple of days ago that really caught the eye of a lot of people. He said in his tweet, "Undisputed, they will wish they treated you better when times were tough. The fake always expose themselves. .. Hashtag limitless," with a picture of him in a Raiders jersey and then another picture that says small circle, private life, clear mind, happy soul. And naturally, with all the rumors we heard during the season, this got people talking again that Maxx Crosby, he could be on the move. And I know Raider fans get very defensive when you mention Maxx Crosby being traded. And look, I do understand it. He's the best player on your team. He's one of the best players in recent memory to play for the Raiders. I would not want to trade him either, but sometimes you need to look at the big picture, and trading Crosby while his value is at the highest it's probably ever going to be is the correct move to make for a rebuilding franchise that that likely won't win anything of substance in the prime years of Crosby. I know that in late October, Mark Davis said, "We're not trading Maxx Crosby before or after the trade deadline," and he was very outspoken that Crosby was practically an untouchable player. But I do wonder if another regime change and now Tom Brady in his ear could end up changing that. And another piece that combines with that is if Crosby goes to management and actually says, "Hey, I want to be traded, I want to go to a winning team." So similarly to the Myles Garrett situation, I think a trade would be the best route to go for both parties involved. I think in terms of trade value, Crosby and Garrett are very similar. I think most NFL teams would say that Garrett is the better player, but Crosby's also around 2 years younger than him. So I do think that kind of equals out their value, and the Raiders could get a first-round pick and a couple maybe day 2 picks if they were in fact going to move Crosby. And a team that has been tied to him from the very beginning is the Detroit Lions because of his ties to the state of Michigan. He played his entire college career at Eastern Michigan, and he's from Lapeer, Michigan as well. He's very familiar with the area. I do think he'd be open to going home and playing for one of the best teams in the league. And then if you're the Detroit Lions, what has been the Achilles heel of your team the last couple of years? It has been your defense. More so in 2024 was due to the mass injuries suffered, including to Aiden Hutchinson, one of the best players on their entire team. But they still could be looking to add one of the best defensive players in the NFL this offseason, and they do have the flexibility to do so because they do have $46.5 million in cap space to spend. And currently looking at Maxx Crosby's contract, he's only a $28 million cap hit this upcoming season, and then a $24.8 million cap hit in 2026. And if the Lions do find a way to facilitate a trade, I'm sure they can add a couple of years and lower that cap hit the next couple of seasons, which would end up making the trade even more feasible. So the money works. I just think the biggest thing for the Lions and general manager Brad Holmes, if he does want to spend multiple draft picks to acquire Crosby, which it will take to do. Holmes has really built the Lions all through the draft, and he's used to accumulating picks, not really sending them away for players. I will say though, Holmes did come from the Los Angeles Rams, who are famously known for F them picks and trading away so much draft capital to bring in a couple of star players. And although that hasn't been the blueprint that Holmes has followed specifically in Detroit with his tenure, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he does actually make a big move to try and get the Lions over the hump. And could you imagine a pass rush with Aiden Hutchinson on one side of the line and then Maxx Crosby on the other side? That would probably be one of the best 1-2 punches that we've seen in NFL history. I mean, Hutchinson was on a clear path to win Defensive Player of the Year before he shattered his leg this past year. And Crosby, despite being really the only premier player on the Raiders defensive line season after season, I know they added Christian Wilkins this past offseason, but he got hurt pretty early in the year. Crosby still puts up ridiculous sack numbers and has one of the highest pressure rates in the entire league. So pairing those two pass rushers would be an absolute problem. So that's why the Lions are the #1 team I'm looking forward to seeing potentially trading for Crosby if he does become available. But ultimately, I just think a move like this is in the best interest of the Raiders organization and Crosby. Will it happen? Will either side have enough heart to really move on and go their separate ways? Well, we're gonna have to wait and see, but I have my eye on Crosby this offseason because I do think this could be the year that we see multiple superstar defensive ends on the move. But I want to know what you think about Maxx Crosby and what the Raiders organization should do. Do you agree with me and think they should maximize his value as it currently sits and get a lot more picks for their future? Or do you think it's not worth it to trade one of the best players in franchise history? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But subscribe to the channel if you are new. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.